Hey there, everybody. So I was recently on a climb. It was a couple days ago, and I got up to an anchor station that was the top of the climb, and then we were going to rappel down. But the deal with the anchor station was it was just two bolts. So one bolt here and another bolt was here. And then people that were there before me, they weaved webbing through both the bolts, and they had a big wrap ring at the bottom, and that's what they rappelled off of. And that particular setup, that the webbing they left behind was really old. So some folks from before me and my firm were there. They found the anchor as is, and they used cord, and they tied it to the top bolt and then the bottom bolt, and so then they left that behind. And then that's when I came upon the anchor, and it had quick draw on the top, and then I actually ended up using the rappel ring to equalize my anchor because I couldn't fit my carabiner into the lower bolt. And so, and I belayed up on that, and then once we both got to the anchor, we were going to rappel down. And so that's the object of this video is when you find equipment it's bail-off material that's left behind, should you trust it? And that really comes down to, one is personal preference, but also it comes down to gear inspection. And one thing you can tell is if the equipment is old, and you can sort of feel when the equipment's old. If it's new, then that obviously it lends credibility to the anchor. If the materials feel crusty in any way, if the colors are very faded, that means large amounts of sun exposure, which could mean it's been there for a season or two. I've seen some material that's completely white. I'm sure we've all come across that before, and then that's pretty much an indicator that to not trust it. And what could we do in situations? Obviously, we can leave gear behind. It's a lot better to leave gear behind than just risk it. You know, it's like a carabiner or a sling or whatever, like $8 versus your life. So why would you ever try to hoard gear? I don't understand. And I'm not talking about leaving a cam behind because like that really sucks when that happens, but if it's just like a sling or a carabiner or a locking carabiner, just leave it behind. I mean, it's just not worth it. One thing I do to get around this is I carry a belt with me. Like, well, a lot of us carry belts with us to hold up our pants, but mine offers an extra use. And maybe it does mean I have to pull my pants up all the way on the way down, but that's totally worth it to leave some easy, cheap gear behind that I totally trust with my life. And so what I do is my belt, I make my own belt, and I use 2-inch tubular webbing, as you can see right here. And then I have 2 wrap rings. These are the about the lightest wrap rings you can get, the small aluminum wrap rings. These are you may have heard them called one-time use wrap rings because some popular beliefs are you can only rappel once on these, when in reality it comes down again to gear inspection and being able to see the entire ring, flip it around on the anchor and really look at it. The rappel ring that we used on this particular anchor was really beefy. It was like 2 of these put together, and that's and it was also probably made out of steel or some other tougher metal than this thing. So we both felt very comfortable using that particular rappel ring to go down. But I want to show you how I put these together into a belt. Now, a couple things to keep in mind is, I already told you about the wrap ring, but the length of the webbing, you have to actually have a useful length. So I'm not like the thickest person on the planet, and so what I do is like I don't have the thickest waist overall, but I take the webbing, you can get it around your body, and then this would be about, well, actually it's it's a decent amount, maybe 1.5 feet or so. But what I worry about is when you tie your water knot, one, it's going to be shorter. It's going to be a lot shorter. But 2 is like if you have a beefy tree, you just want it to be a bit more versatile. So what I do is I have it maybe about that much, wrap it around my body. Oh wow. So I wrap it around my body close to 2 times the amount. And that may seem like a lot, but keep in mind when you put the knot in, well, you will be tying this in a knot, so that's going to take up material, and you're going to be tying it into a knot as a belt, as well as tying it in a knot when you're wrapping around something for an anchor, and that takes up more space than you think. So when you're cutting this is just like 30 feet of webbing or so. I attach the wrap rings onto the webbing, and I tie the knot, and then I just wrap it around my body. It's probably about that much it uses, and then you can see that now it's a little bit less. And actually I'm personally okay with what I do is I weave it back through here and then tie a knot, and then I have a little bit hanging off the end, and I'm personally okay with that. It's never gotten in the way before, and it's never tripped me up, so I'm okay with having a little bit of extra material just so that way I have enough webbing to work with what I got. But anyway, let me flip the camera around and I'll show you how I tie it together. Okay, so first things first, let's start with my webbing. Here you go, I have it again. And I'm going to tie overhand knot. So you want to have a decent amount. You want to have a decent amount of tail. Something like that. You can always adjust it afterwards too. Make sure that it lies nice and flat. You see how there's no twists in that? Actually, I'm going to need a lot more tail. So, there you go, and make sure that's lying flat. Alright, so that's a good amount of tail to have. There's a finger for scale on how long you can see it is. It's probably about 7 inches or so. Then you take your 2 wrap rings, pass 1 and 2. Wrap this, wrap the end around, and you can enter, this would probably actually, there's 2 ways how you can enter the knot. One is like you just saw, how I would be going through the inner part, and then if I wrap it around the other way, I go through the outer part. And so, one way is a lot easier to tie than the other, but a lot harder to adjust. And so if I go through the outer part, that's really easy for me to tie right now. As you can see, what I'm doing is just retracing the knot. Oh, it looks like I don't even have enough tail. I should practice this knot a little bit more. There we go, so now I'm more like 9 inches of tail. Yeah, that's the right amount. So you see how I'm just tracing the overhand knot. That's really what I'm doing. This is the overhand retrace, you could call it. Only that's what the water knot is. And so a few things that I've learned with these bail-off belts. This is my 5th one because I've left 4 behind on the route now, and I've made a new one every time. But one thing is this loop, you want it to be kind of small. And so the easy way to do that would be make this loose again, and then pull more tail through. And that's perfectly fine. Basically, the smaller that loop is, the easier these 2 will pinch on each other. But then you have this really long tail, which does get annoying and in the way. And so if you're fine with dealing with that, then feel free. If you want it to be a bit more clean, then what you have to do is actually tie it the harder way. So instead of putting the tail, there we go, and I can get rid of these now. But instead of putting the tail through the outer part, you actually have to flip this over and put the tail in the inner part of the knot, and you actually have to retrace the inside of the knot, which can be more difficult to tie, but once you've actually done it, then it's a lot easier to adjust. So it's either making your life easier at the start or making it easier at the end. And that's all just based on how neat you want your belt to be, which, I don't know, I feel like you want your belt to be pretty neat. So it just takes a little bit more finagling. There you go, and then the end will also be a little hard to get through. Yes, you do want to make sure that this knot is clean. There we go. It's difficult to do this through a camera, actually. You want to psych yourself out and go for it. I'm getting like lightheaded just looking at it. There. So I actually have the end through. It's kind of hard to see. There you go, you can see it right there. So you can see that clearly took a bit more struggle busting on the way through. And even now I have to go through and clean the knot up a bit. But now the tail is a lot smaller. And actually the loop itself is a lot smaller too. And but if I do want to adjust it, then I can just go to this tab right here and push it through, and then it all just slides through really easily. There you go. I would have to clean this knot up a little bit more because there's that fold right there if I wanted it to be truly clean. However, it is just holding up your pants at this point, so it's like no big deal if this little fold is here. But since I'm a neat freak, I may fix it anyway. But you see how the knot itself holds both the rings in place. You don't really have to worry about it coming untied because it is a water knot, so it's like meant for being, it's a strong knot and relying on friction. And then you just have the rest of the belt right here. Now all that's left is to put it on. And so anyone who's bought like a really cheap belt or a really cheap pair of pants that comes with a free belt, same deal. I take the end of the belt, pass it through 2 rings, pull it tight, and then pass it through the first one again. Nothing too complicated. Pull it tight, and then it holds up your pants. And then with this extra again, I'll pass it through all my belt loops, and then bring it up through the belt, then just do an overhand knot. There you go. This Allen actually is a bit shorter, like in length, than my last belt, but it's a good length to have. And then it holds up your pants. And then if you're in a sticky situation, you have to get out, and you just pull out the belt. You can untie the knot, wrap it around a tree or whatever. Say that's my tree right here. And then you have a wrap ring that you can get down with, and another wrap ring for your next belt. So it's actually come in handy quite a bit of times. Like I said, this is my 5th one now, and I think that they're definitely worth having around. And you know, may not carry it around with you all the time, but now I know I can get off a route and leave bail off gear behind. So that's my idea with the belt. It's served its purpose 4 times now, and now I got a 5th one for the next adventure I get into. So, I'm Ryan Tilley. This is the bail off belt, and I'll see you in the next video.